Have you ever noticed how the moment you stop being easily influenced, everything changes? People who once seemed warm suddenly grow distant. Conversations turn cold. The quiet support you once had starts fading away. But why? Here's an uncomfortable truth. When people can't control you, they don't just accept it. They react. Some will guilt trip you. Others will twist your words. Some might even make you question your own reality. And the worst part? It has nothing to do with you being wrong. It's about them losing control. Stoicism teaches that true strength isn't about controlling others, but about staying unshaken when they try to control you. But here's the real question. Are you truly free, or are you still being manipulated without even realizing it? Take the story of Adam. He thought standing his ground would earn him respect. Instead, it brought resistance. Friends withdrew. Colleagues whispered. Even family questioned his decisions. But in that struggle, he uncovered a life-changing truth. In this video, we'll expose the hidden tactics people use when they can't control you, and why standing firm is the ultimate test of freedom. Stay until the end, because the last tactic is the hardest to see coming. Let's dive in. Number 1. They try to manipulate you. When people realize they can no longer control you, their approach often changes in subtle but calculated ways. Some individuals have a deep-seated need to influence others. They aim to guide your choices, steer your behavior, and shape your actions to align with their desires. For them, control feels like security, and when it's threatened by someone's independence, they don't simply step back. Instead, they adapt their tactics. Rather than using direct control, they switch to more covert methods, often relying on emotional manipulation. The goal is to create a sense of guilt, obligation, or pressure that makes you second-guess yourself. It's not always obvious. It can be wrapped in kind words or framed as concern, but it's still a form of influence designed to pull you back into their orbit. Here's the reality. When someone loses the ability to control you openly, they look for quieter, more manipulative ways to sway your decisions. They might lean into guilt, reminding you of past favors or sacrifices in a way that makes you feel indebted. You might hear things like, "I've always been there for you, and this is how you repay me." It's not an invitation for gratitude, but a calculated move to push you toward compliance through emotional discomfort. If guilt isn't effective, they might shift to exaggerated compliments. You'll hear statements like, "You're incredible at handling this. I don't know how I'd manage without you." On the surface, it sounds like admiration, but beneath that, it's a subtle push to make you feel responsible for meeting their needs. The unspoken message is that if you don't help, you're letting them down, reinforcing the idea that your worth is tied to their approval. When neither guilt nor flattery succeeds, the strategy often escalates. They might create a false sense of urgency, painting situations as more dire than they truly are, pressuring you to act quickly without time to consider your choices. Or they may cast themselves as victims, implying that their emotional well-being is in your hands. Statements like, "I just don't know how I'll cope if you won't help me," or "It feels like nobody really understands me but you," are designed to trigger your empathy and make you feel compelled to offer support, even when it's at the expense of your own boundaries. These tactics are powerful because they tap into basic human instincts, our desire to help, to be kind, and to avoid causing pain. But the deeper motivation isn't connection or care. It's about preserving control. It's about keeping you bound by invisible threads of emotional obligation, even though the manipulation isn't immediately obvious. The key to breaking free from these patterns is awareness. When you recognize these subtle attempts at control, you can start to separate genuine connection from manipulation. You begin to understand that true respect doesn't require emotional pressure or disguised tactics. It doesn't depend on how much guilt you feel or how urgently someone frames their needs. Real, healthy relationships are rooted in mutual understanding, open communication, and freedom. Freedom to make choices without fear of emotional consequences. Standing firm in the face of manipulation isn't about being cold or distant. It's about valuing authentic connection over control. It's about recognizing when someone is using emotions as a tool to influence you and choosing instead to respond with clarity and confidence. Because genuine respect is never earned through guilt, obligation, or pressure. It's offered freely, without strings attached. Number 2. They spread lies about you. When individuals realize they can no longer control you, some resort to one of the most deceptive strategies. They begin to spread misinformation. Instead of confronting you with honesty or engaging in an open discussion, they choose to twist facts, create misleading narratives, and attempt to sway others against you. Why do they do this? Because once they lose the ability to influence you directly, they shift their focus to damaging your reputation. It's not a pursuit of truth. It's a calculated move to reclaim control through deception. This approach is rooted in a desire for power. When they can no longer manipulate you through direct means, they turn to shaping how others perceive you. Their goal is to isolate you, to make you feel as though you're standing alone, and to pressure you into submission through social exclusion or judgment. They know that a false story, once planted, can spread quickly, even without proof. These distortions are designed to trigger you, to provoke a reaction, and to lure you into defending yourself. But the moment you engage, they feel they've succeeded, because now you're playing by their rules. What makes this tactic so effective is that it doesn't rely on reality. Even baseless lies can seem convincing when shared with confidence or urgency. Whispered rumors, exaggerated scenarios, or completely fabricated situations are enough to make others question your character. The manipulator's hope is that you'll become so consumed with correcting every false statement that you'll lose focus, exhaust yourself, and ultimately concede to their control. But here's the hard truth. The spreading of misinformation is a tool for those who feel powerless. It's a desperate attempt to regain dominance by shaping the social narrative. It's an emotional trap, one that relies on your natural instinct to defend your name, prove your integrity, and explain your actions. But engaging in this trap only gives them more power. Each reaction fuels their strategy, validating their belief that they can still control you, if not directly, then through the chaos they create. Yet real strength doesn't come from fighting every accusation or correcting every rumor. It comes from knowing when silence speaks louder than words. Refusing to react impulsively doesn't mean accepting injustice. It means choosing your battles wisely and understanding that not every falsehood deserves your energy. Sometimes, the most powerful move is patience, allowing lies to unravel themselves while you remain focused on your values and goals. Lies may spread quickly, but they don't stand the test of time. Staying calm and composed doesn't suggest weakness. On the contrary, it demonstrates a deeper sense of confidence and resilience. When you trust in your integrity, you're less likely to be shaken by baseless claims. You understand that truth doesn't require frantic defense. It reveals itself through consistent actions and character. And those who truly know you, those whose opinions matter, will recognize that. The challenge lies in resisting the urge to engage emotionally. It's tempting to argue, to clear up misunderstandings, and to defend your character. But each time you do, you risk becoming entangled in their web. And the more energy you invest in their narrative, the more control they gain over your emotions and focus. The reality is, you can't control what others say about you, but you can control how you respond. Not every accusation deserves an answer. Not every falsehood requires confrontation. Sometimes, the strength lies in letting go, choosing to live in alignment with your values, and trusting that the truth will stand firm. Because at the end of the day, genuine relationships are built on trust, understanding, and authenticity, not on the shifting sands of rumors and gossip. The people who truly matter will see beyond the lies, while those who choose to believe falsehoods were never truly in your corner. And realizing that truth is its own kind of freedom. Number 3, they challenge your confidence. When individuals recognize they can no longer control you outright, they don't always confront you directly. Instead, they may choose a more subtle and manipulative path, one that works by slowly undermining your self-belief. Rather than openly attacking your decisions, they begin planting small, almost harmless-seeming suggestions of doubt. They might ask, "Are you sure that's the best decision?" Or remark, "That seems like a risky move, don't you think?" On the surface, these comments appear casual, even concerned, but their real intent is to make you question yourself. Why would someone use this approach? Because if they can weaken your confidence, they regain a sense of control over you. Doubt is a powerful tool. The more they cause you to second-guess your choices, the more influence they reclaim. Over time, without even realizing it, you might find yourself hesitating, reevaluating, and seeking their approval, giving away control one uncertain thought at a time. It's a slow, calculated form of influence. They're not forcing you to change your mind, but they're leading you to question it on your own. It's a strategy built on hesitation. The more you pause and rethink, the easier it is for them to step in and guide your next move. And before long, their subtle suggestions start to feel like truths. Imagine your confidence as a solid, well-built bridge. You trust it. You know it can hold your weight. But now, picture someone standing at the edge of that bridge, quietly whispering, "What if it collapses?" At first, you ignore it. You know the bridge is strong. But the longer they question its stability, the more you start to wonder. Not because the bridge has changed, but because doubt has taken root. That's exactly how this form of manipulation works. Your reasoning is sound. Your decisions are well thought out. But the repeated presence of uncertainty wears down your certainty. This kind of subtle manipulation is especially dangerous because it feels so harmless at first. You don't even realize it's happening until you find yourself stuck, hesitating, overthinking, and searching for reassurance. That's how they regain control, not by force, but by feeding your uncertainty until it feels like your own. But here's the truth. Confidence doesn't need permission. It doesn't rely on others agreeing with you. True strength is born from within, grounded in the trust you place in your own judgment. Philosophers throughout history have emphasized this truth. Confidence is rooted in self-awareness, not in external approval. And the moment you stop looking for validation, you become harder to sway. I've experienced this firsthand. There was a time when someone close to me questioned every decision I made. Their doubts were never aggressive. They came as gentle suggestions, framed as concern. At first, I explained myself, thinking that reason would be enough to end their doubts. I would lay out my logic, justify my decisions, and offer proof that I was on the right path. But it never ended. No matter how much I explained, the questions kept coming. That's when I realized their goal wasn't to understand. It was to make me doubt myself. They didn't want clarity. They wanted control. One day, I responded differently. When they asked, "Are you sure that's a good idea?" I simply said, "Yes, I am." I didn't explain. I didn't defend. I didn't debate. And just like that, the conversation ended. They had nothing left to say because confidence doesn't engage in arguments. It doesn't seek approval. It simply stands firm. So how do you handle these subtle manipulations? First, trust your own reasoning. If you've made a decision based on logic, experience, and careful thought, hold on to it. Don't let someone's casual doubt shake you. Second, resist the urge to over-explain. The more you justify yourself, the more you open doors for them to challenge you. Keep your responses clear and simple. And finally, remember this truth. Being questioned doesn't automatically mean you're wrong. People will challenge you for many reasons, some genuine, some not. But their doubts don't define your reality. Confidence is a form of quiet strength, but it is constantly tested. There will always be those who attempt to weaken it, not because they know better, but because your certainty threatens their sense of control. But their power is only as strong as the doubt you allow. The moment you choose to trust yourself, to stand by your decisions without needing validation, you take that power back. You stop playing their game. At its core, confidence isn't about proving you're right. It's about knowing you've made thoughtful choices and standing by them, even when others question you. And when you stop allowing their uncertainty to influence your thinking, you become resilient. Because true confidence is self-contained. It's unshaken by whispers, doubts, or outside opinions. It's the steady, quiet knowledge that you can trust yourself. And that, in the end, is the kind of strength no one can take away. Number 4, they copy you. When individuals realize they can't control or surpass you, they may resort to an unexpected tactic: imitation. At first, it might seem harmless, even coincidental. You take a bold step, and suddenly they're taking the same one. You introduce a fresh idea, and they echo it as if it were their own. But with time, it becomes clear. This isn't a competition of ideas. It's an attempt to replicate you. They're not innovating or carving their own path. They're simply following yours, trying to claim success by walking in your footsteps without facing the same challenges. But here's the reality. When they fail to challenge you directly, they try to mirror you. It's not about creativity or growth. It's about shadowing your progress and hoping that mimicry will yield the same results. Yet, no matter how much they imitate, they will always be a few steps behind. Imitation might fool some people for a short time, but it can never sustain itself. Authenticity, unlike imitation, has depth. It comes from experience, vision, and character, things that cannot be copied. Think of it like a tree and its shadow. The shadow only moves when the tree does, following it without choice or direction. It lacks substance, merely an outline, incapable of growth on its own. That's what imitation is, an empty echo of something genuine. Someone can copy your actions, repeat your words, and mimic your style, but they'll never capture your essence. They can't replicate your experiences, your struggles, or the unique insights that shape your originality. And that's what sets you apart. Philosophy teaches us that true value is rooted in character, not imitation. Your ideas and actions are shaped by your distinct journey, not borrowed from someone else's. No one can replicate the lessons learned from your failures, the courage it took to overcome your fears, or the perspective shaped by your unique experiences. These are the elements that give your originality strength and depth, and they cannot be imitated. I remember facing this kind of mimicry myself. There was someone who shadowed almost everything I did. It started subtly, copying ideas, mirroring behaviors, even adopting similar habits. At first, it was irritating, feeling as though my uniqueness was being diluted. But over time, I began to see it differently. The more they copied, the clearer it became that they were struggling to find their own direction. Their imitation wasn't a reflection of my success, but of their own uncertainty. They weren't creating, they were borrowing. And every time they followed my steps, they moved further from discovering their own path. Eventually, I changed direction, pursuing new projects, exploring unfamiliar challenges, and growing in ways they couldn't predict. And when I shifted, they stalled. They had nothing authentic to build upon, nothing original to guide them. That's when I learned an essential lesson. Imitation is proof of leadership. People don't copy what's behind them. They imitate what's ahead, what they admire, but cannot create themselves. So, how should you respond to people who imitate you? The first and most important step is to let go of the worry. If someone is copying you, they're already following, not leading. Their focus is on what you're doing, which means they'll always be reacting to your moves. Second, keep evolving. Growth that comes from genuine curiosity and passion will always be one step ahead of imitation. When you pursue new ideas, deepen your knowledge, and challenge yourself, it becomes impossible for imitators to keep pace. They can mimic what you've already done, but they can't anticipate where you're going next. And lastly, remember this: imitation isn't always flattery. It's often a reflection of fear and insecurity. People copy when they're unsure of their own ideas, or when they fear their originality won't be enough. They try to attach themselves to someone else's vision because they lack confidence in their own. But what they fail to understand is that authenticity can't be borrowed. It's created through courage, through mistakes, through persistence. And those are things that can't be replicated. At the end of the day, imitation fades, trends pass, styles change, and copied ideas lose their power. But originality, real, authentic creativity, endures. It leaves a legacy that outlives trends because it's rooted in personal truth and genuine effort. So don't let imitators distract you. Stay focused on your growth. Keep pursuing what excites you and continue building on your unique path. The faster you evolve, the more impossible it becomes for anyone to catch up. And in the end, originality will always shine brighter than any imitation. Number 5, they try to isolate you. When people realize they can't control you directly, they often choose a more calculated approach, one that operates quietly, weaving doubt and confusion behind the scenes. They won't openly confront you or challenge your choices. Instead, they spread subtle rumors, distort your words, and manipulate perceptions, slowly turning friends, family, and colleagues against you. Their ultimate aim is to isolate you, to make you feel detached and alone. Because they understand something very clearly. When you have strong connections, you're harder to influence. But if they can erode your support system, they weaken your defenses, leaving you vulnerable to their control. This isn't about misunderstanding or miscommunication. It's a strategic effort to divide and conquer. People who thrive on control feel threatened by independence. They fear those who think for themselves and refuse to be manipulated. And when direct control fails, they attempt to dismantle the very relationships that give you strength. They might sow small doubts, saying things like, "I'm just looking out for you, but are you sure you can trust them?" Or they may distort harmless conversations to paint you in a negative light. Over time, their quiet influence can create confusion and tension, making you question who is truly in your corner. It's a slow erosion, and often it's hard to see until the damage is done. Like a predator isolating its prey, manipulators work to separate you from the people who protect and support you. They know that as long as you're surrounded by trust and understanding, you're strong. So they create friction, small misunderstandings, twisted stories, and subtle judgments, designed to push others away from you. It's a method as old as manipulation itself: divide, isolate, and conquer. But there is wisdom in knowing how to resist this. The key is understanding that true strength isn't about standing alone. It's about standing with the right people. Real support systems are built on trust, shared experiences, and mutual respect. And no matter how convincing a manipulator may be, lies can only hold for so long. Time, consistency, and truth will eventually reveal what's real and what isn't. Those who know your character will see through the deception. And those who choose to believe the whispers, perhaps their loyalty was never genuine. I've encountered this kind of manipulation myself. It started subtly. Small remarks that made me question my relationships. Little distortions that, on the surface, seemed harmless. But over time, the web of deception grew. At first, my instinct was to fight back, to defend my name and confront the lies. But I realized that reacting gave them the control they craved. The more I defended myself, the more entangled I became in their games. So I chose a different path. I focused on living with integrity, letting my actions speak louder than any accusation. I deepened the connections that mattered most, showing with consistency who I really was. And slowly, the truth emerged. The people who genuinely cared for me saw through the falsehoods. They recognized the difference between gossip and reality. The ones who stood by me proved their loyalty. And those who walked away, they were never really there for me in the first place. This experience taught me that real relationships don't crumble because of lies. They may be tested, but true connections endure. And manipulators? They can only succeed if you allow their words to shape your reality. So how can you defend yourself against these tactics? First, resist the urge to react emotionally. When you respond out of frustration, you hand over control. Stay calm, stay consistent, and trust in your character. Second, invest in relationships that are rooted in trust and authenticity. Those who know you well will be harder to sway. And third, don't waste energy chasing those who choose to walk away. If someone's trust in you is so easily broken by whispers, it was never strong to begin with. Let them go. Because the truth is, real relationships, those built on understanding, shared respect, and genuine care, are resilient. They withstand the tests of gossip and deceit. They may bend, but they don't break. Manipulators cannot destroy what is grounded in authenticity. In the end, strength isn't about avoiding conflict or controlling what people say. It's about remaining steady when false narratives arise. It's about knowing who you are, staying true to that, and trusting that time will expose what's real. Lies might spread quickly, but they fade just as fast. And integrity? That lasts. So don't let their manipulations shape your reality. Stand firm. Focus on what's real. Nurture the relationships that matter. And above all, remember this: the strongest defense isn't loud confrontation, but quiet consistency. Let your actions speak. Let your character shine. And trust that those who truly matter will stand by you, no matter what lies they hear. Number 6, they challenge your confidence. Some people don't seek to control you with obvious confrontation. Instead, they choose a quieter, more calculated approach by slowly eroding your confidence. They won't openly argue or criticize, but will plant subtle seeds of doubt. They'll question your decisions, highlight risks, and make you second-guess your own abilities. Why? Because uncertainty is their doorway to control. If they can shake your self-belief, they regain influence over your choices. The less sure you are, the easier it is for them to steer you in the direction they want. But here's the reality. Constant doubt disguised as concern isn't guidance. It's manipulation. They aren't offering helpful advice. They're testing your certainty, waiting for cracks to appear. The more you hesitate, the more power they gain. It's a tactic that works because it's subtle. You start to question your instincts, wondering if you're being reckless or naive. Their aim isn't to help you think critically, but to make you rely on their validation instead of your own judgment. It's like walking across a bridge you know is strong. You trust it to hold. But imagine someone nearby saying, "That bridge looks shaky. Are you sure it's safe?" You might shrug it off at first, but if they keep whispering doubt, it begins to eat away at your confidence. Not because the bridge is weak, but because their words have planted fear where certainty once stood. And that's exactly how this kind of manipulation works. It isn't about facts. It's about weakening your trust in yourself. The solution isn't to argue or explain. It's to recognize the game and step away from it. Real strength lies in trusting your decisions and moving forward, despite the doubts of others. Confidence doesn't come from people agreeing with you. It comes from understanding your own reasoning and standing by it, even when it's challenged. I've been on the receiving end of this tactic. There was a time when someone close to me questioned nearly every choice I made. It wasn't aggressive, but subtle, always framed as concern. "That seems risky. Are you sure that's the best idea?" At first, I responded with explanations, trying to justify my decisions. I thought if I could prove my reasoning, the doubts would disappear. But I was wrong. The more I explained, the more they questioned. That's when I realized it wasn't about my choices. It was about control, about keeping me second-guessing, unsure, and looking for their approval. So, I made a change. The next time they questioned me, I didn't offer explanations. I simply said, "I'm sure." No reasoning, no justification. And that was it. They had nothing to say, because confidence doesn't argue. It just is. It stands on its own. Dealing with these subtle tactics isn't easy, but it's necessary if you want to maintain your independence. The first step is trusting your own mind. If you've made a thoughtful, reasoned decision, believe in it. Don't let someone else's doubt shake you. The second step is to avoid over-explaining. Every time you justify yourself, you open the door for them to challenge you further. Keep it simple. Be clear and concise. And the final step? Recognize that their doubts are a reflection of their need for control, not a reflection of your ability or insight. Because at the end of the day, your confidence is your strength. People can challenge it, question it, and attempt to chip away at it. But they only succeed if you let them. You don't need permission to trust yourself. You don't need to prove your worth with explanations. The strongest kind of confidence is quiet, steady, and self-assured. It doesn't shout. It doesn't argue. It simply moves forward. And when you learn to stand by your decisions without hesitation, you become someone who is truly unshakable. Number 7. They wait for you to fail. There are individuals who will disguise their indifference with empty encouragement. They'll offer polite smiles, nod at your achievements, and utter phrases like, "I'm so happy for you." But beneath the surface, they are not celebrating your progress. They are simply waiting for you to fail. Your ambition confronts their complacency. Your growth is a mirror that reflects their own stagnation. And when they can't match your progress, they prefer to see you stumble. Their applause is not for your success. It's for the moment they believe you'll fall. But the truth is, your success has never depended on their support. Their approval, or silent disapproval, holds no real power unless you give it to them. Real growth, the kind that endures, is rooted in resilience, not recognition. It's like a tree weathering a storm. The winds howl, branches sway, but if the roots run deep, the tree stands firm. The storm may be loud, it may be relentless, but it cannot break what is deeply grounded. That's how these people operate. They push with their doubts. They hope their silence or subtle criticisms will shake you. But they can only succeed if you surrender. Their desire to see you fall is born from their discomfort with your progress. Your determination highlights their hesitation. Your courage reminds them of the risks they didn't take. And instead of facing that reality, they choose to root for your failure, believing that if you fall, it will justify their inaction. But their approval was never necessary for your growth, and their disappointment won't diminish your accomplishments. This is where ancient philosophy offers clarity. The Stoic thinker Epictetus once emphasized that focusing on your own progress is far more powerful than wasting energy on critics. True strength isn't about silencing doubters. It's about growing beyond their reach. Because success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you are capable of rising, even when the odds are stacked against you. I've lived through moments like this. I knew someone who posed as a supporter, but constantly injected quiet doubts into my path. They'd say things like, "That sounds risky. Are you sure it'll work out?" Or, "Not everyone makes it in that field." At first, I thought they were being realistic. I thought their concerns were genuine. But when I faced obstacles, they were the first to say, "See, I told you it wouldn't be easy." That's when I realized they weren't standing beside me. They were standing back, waiting for me to fall. Their encouragement was just a mask for their expectation of failure. And for a while, I found myself wanting to prove them wrong. I wanted to silence their doubts with success. But over time, I understood that their opinions didn't define my journey. I didn't need to prove anything to them. I only needed to stay focused on my growth, on my goals, and on my purpose. I stopped explaining my plans. I stopped seeking validation. I focused on progress. And when I eventually succeeded, their silence was louder than any encouragement they'd given. I didn't need their approval. I only needed to believe in my path. Because that's the reality. Some people observe your journey like an audience waiting for a misstep. They're entertained by the possibility of your failure. But you don't owe them a performance. You owe it to yourself to continue moving forward, no matter how loudly they hope for your downfall. Your resilience is the response they can't handle. Your persistence is the silence that says more than words ever could. The best way to deal with those who quietly root against you isn't through confrontation or explanation. It's through action. Keep growing. Keep evolving. Not to prove them wrong, but to stay true to yourself. Success isn't about answering critics. It's about answering the call within yourself to keep striving, even when no one believes in you. Because every step forward is a step away from their expectations. And every achievement proves that their doubts were never your reality. In the end, the ones who wait for you to fall will find themselves watching you rise, over and over again. And nothing unsettles them more than realizing their expectations held no power over your outcome. So don't worry about applause, and don't fear their silence. Focus on what matters: your growth, your progress, and your ability to stand strong, no matter who doubts you. Because real strength isn't about proving anyone wrong. It's about proving to yourself that you can keep moving, keep evolving, and keep rising, regardless of who's watching, hoping you won't. Thanks for sticking with the video until the end. I'd really love to know your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments. If you found this video valuable or thought-provoking, hitting the like button is a great way to let me know and helps motivate me to keep creating more content you'll enjoy. Also, if you'd like to stay connected and explore more ideas together, consider subscribing so you don't miss any future uploads. My hope is that these videos bring you new insights and inspiration as we continue learning and growing together. Your support truly makes a difference. Thank you for being here.